Two dudes broing out about Home Alone.
Welcome to the Home Alone Minute. Two dudes in a band about Home Alone talking about a minute of Home Alone. This week, minute 60.
We hit an hour.
Yeah, what a milestone, right?
I feel like this is more of a milestone than 50. And I mean, in the literal numerical sense, it is. But more significant than like 50 or 100.
Yeah, we've sort of stacked some milestones here because we hit 50, which is a nice round number. And then around that same time, we hit a year that we've been doing this. But now we're at the hour mark of the movie, and that kind of feels special too.
It's when you know you have 30 minutes left of most of the millennials' attention span.
Do you struggle with that of reconciling the length of a movie versus the length of a season of television that you might be binging?
I've witnessed that with other people, but I don't have that, no.
You hear that a movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes. You're like, no, I can't watch that. You're crazy. 2 hours and 40 minutes? No. Let's go watch all 7 hours of Squid Game on a Saturday instead. I think what we're learning is that we need to bring back the intermission. If your movie's over 2 hours, give everybody a bathroom break in the middle.
I like that a lot for the theatrical experience because I have no problem sitting and watching a film that's quite long. But if you're doing it the right way with a very large beverage, about 60 to 90 minutes in, you might be needing I wanted to come up with a better word, but break.
In our current system, you just have to guess that the moment you're going to be missing because you need to go to the bathroom won't be a pivotal moment that leaves you confused when you get back because you missed it.
There are sites, apps, whatever.
Yeah, I've heard of these.
That will give you the moments to go, but I find that to be a spoiler.
Yeah, exactly. But if everybody knew that you were getting a break halfway through, one, you would know when you're halfway through the movie. And two, you wouldn't have to guess. You would just be able to go at the right time. And you might go buy some more popcorn.
Or you could place more ads.
Yeah, you could run a little bit more trivia on the screen. Toyota commercial.
Well, that also would be helpful for smaller businesses because you would obviously have those as the lesser sought after slots, but smaller businesses wouldn't have as high a bar. Your barrier to entry could be much lower because you say, hey, do you want intermission ads? Those are, a quarter of the price of right before trailers.
Oh, you see, I think they would cost more because the ads at the beginning, people are missing those if they show up on time for the movie. But everybody who paid for a ticket to the movie is strapped in for the intermission ads unless they're leaving to go use the restroom.
But they're all leaving to go to the restroom, aren't they?
Not everybody. But I bet most. I like the idea of everyone having a intermission activities, kind of like in between periods of a hockey game, where they bring the little league kids out, or they let the people race on some big wheel bikes, or let's get a t-shirt cannon at the halfway point of Oppenheimer,
or maybe somebody who doesn't look like he's fast, but he's really fast and will beat anybody.
Do you think that the intermission for Home Alone would be not right at this minute, but maybe at the end of the scene? Is that a good time to stop for a bathroom break?
My recollection says yes, but I would have to see it again.
We're an hour through. So biologically speaking, this is about when your large soda has made its run through you.
Interesting choice of word there. It's hard to answer that question without talking about future minutes.
Which we don't do around here.
As a rule. Should we go over the rules in our intro every week?
Welcome to the Home Alone Minute. Two guys in a band about Home Alone, broing out about a minute of Home Alone. Here's what we don't do around here. We don't talk about other minutes. We say so good a little too often, and we need a third one. What are the rules, the staples of our show?
We identify an unsung hero 30% of the time.
That's true. Yes, we could easily make an outline. We could easily have a spreadsheet of topics to cover and have some unsung hero nomination music ready and allow listeners to submit their unsung hero theme song for the week. We have the minute 56 green and yellow plastic cap update every week.
Green and yellow, green and yellow. Yeah, is it easier to listen to a 3-hour podcast or 3 of our episodes?
Our episodes are not an hour long.
So 4 of our episodes?
Well, I guess most people listen to it at half speed to really like draw out the enjoyment, right?
Yeah, are most of them like 8 minutes because everyone's on 2.5?
2.5 sounds too fast.
I usually nestle in around 1.7.
I'm a 1x kind of guy. I don't mess with it.
Really?
Yeah. Sometimes with audiobooks, I'll speed them up a little bit, but not often at all.
It also depends on the fidelity of the audio. There's a lot of stuff where I will go fast enough to where I would like to be listening to it at that pace, but the audio just doesn't really keep up, so I can't understand what they're saying.
I heard just a snippet of an NPR story about this, and some people were claiming to listen to audiobooks on like 3x speed or something. So NPR played what it sounds like to hear something at 3x speed and just how indecipherable and crazy that would be. Kind of calling these people out on lying.
Yeah, I think 3 is pretty extreme. 2 is, well, and to be fair, it also has to do with your pacing. And this is a like deep pull / inside joke where I'm going to throw my dad under the bus here. Do you recall back when answering machines were cassette tapes?
Yes.
So during that era, my dad called home and left a message for us to hear. And when we were fast forwarding through it, we could still understand what he was saying because of how slowly he spoke.
Do you ever watch Home Alone at a faster speed so you can live the experience in a more efficient manner? Go through Kevin's journey, like when you've only got a moment.
This is the intermission where you're halfway through the edit, and I'm going to read you an ad for Allstate. You're in good hands. That's it. It's not really an ad, it's a tagline. Speaking of taglines, Great Clips has a new one, and I find it so funny because the tagline is, "It's going to be great," which sounds immediately defensive about your haircut. It's like, no, trust me, it's going to be great.
My daughter really likes playing records at the 45 speed on the really, they get all sped up. Maybe she's just trying to like save time.
I like that. Has she played any 45s at 33?
I don't think so. I got to look around for some 45s. Good experiment. Maybe I'll find some polkas on 45. Weird Al song.
Might I recommend the Jurassic Park soundtrack?
There's a 45 of the Jurassic Park soundtrack.
It sounds so much better slower. Way more epic.
Okay. I'll look that up. That sounds good. Yeah, that sounds cool. I could get into that. Now I want a really slow version of our theme song, which we might need if I'm going to explain what the podcast is and all of our rules on top of it.
Do you think polka would sound less corny to the general population if it were slower?
I'm trying to think if I've ever heard a slow tuba. I can't think of any slow tuba usage.
The Imperial March from Star Wars?
Oh yeah? It's got some tube in it? I guess it would, right?
It's pretty horn heavy.
Yeah, but like, it seems like the tuba is like on display in a polka song. It's kind of the...
You're right. The horns
bass
in that song are very much the higher frequencies. Tuba's not really doing the melody there.
And they're like a collective force, but like a tuba is kind of like it's an individual instrument in a polka band. Jerod, where do you stand on polka? Where do you stand on John Candy, who is probably the feature of minute 60?
I would say if we're doing like net promoter score, I'm probably somewhere between a 6 and a 7 on polka and a 10 on John Candy.
Okay. I might go lower on polka just because I can't pretend that I like it a lot if I'm never seeking it out.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever skipped a Weird Al polka song?
No.
Okay.
Oftentimes the opposite, where I jump to them.
I think that tells us what we need to know.
These days, though, probably a good 80% of the polka I hear in my life is when I'm at a stoplight next to a pickup truck full of house painters. And I don't mind it at all. I'm like, oh yeah, all right. Some polka up in here.
Do you find that most house painters are from like the larger Kenosha area?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what your neck of the woods is like, but just work vans full of guys from Sheboygan.
I was just going to make a joke about Little Sheboygan and their inability to assimilate.
I think last episode we talked about how Nazis shifted themselves over to South America post World War II, and I think a couple of them brought their tubas and accordions.
Is it just too European for American taste?
We have some sort of innate disinclination to it. I guess accordion isn't the most palatable instrument for everyone, but it also has like some zaniness that we're not always looking for in our popular music.
I always find it so impressive when someone can play it well.
Yeah, it's a tough instrument.
But our pal Jaleel White did a real number on the accordion with making it not cool at all.
Yeah,
Family Matters.
What would it take to make the accordion cool? If you had to like fund the PR budget for that and you needed to guarantee success?
I think it would be a two-pronged approach, and part of it would actually be verticalizing the manufacturing itself, because I think there's something in the way of the accordion aesthetic that is also very different than other instruments.
So we'd have to manufacture like a cool looking accordion?
Yeah, I think something that's a little bit less traditional and ornate.
Okay. That's a novel approach that I don't think Big Accordion has put a lot of thought into.
I think I would also look into influencers that are more gateway than ones who don't feel like they would be obvious fits. There is this temptation for a lot of people to be like, okay, well, I'm going to go and pay Kim Kardashian to like learn accordion and like post about it and things like that. But
yeah,
you would
put an accordion on her butt.
Or in her butt, right? Like that's the new lift.
We're going to break the internet.
You use accordion as the lift.
You get an accordion butt lift.
An ABL.
Yeah.
But you would be much better served by finding people who are already musically inclined, maybe people who are like studio influencers, and just start kind of putting it in there and have it naturally break into some of the more like fringe artists who, frankly, are the ones who are influencing some of the larger, more mainstream artists. I think those two buckets are where I would put most of my attention, is the instrument itself and the aesthetics, and then trying to find those gateway influencers.
I like it. Good plan.
What's the budget?
I mean, that's you tell me. I'm a lowly public educator. Is that a $1 million effort? Is that a $6 million effort? 60? I don't have a bearing on this.
I mean, the influencer piece, you could definitely do it for sub-million, but the manufacturing piece, certainly not.
You could get Chapel Roan to throw some accordion into her next single for like $1 million, right?
You wouldn't even need that, because I'll tell you, I'll try not to exaggerate here. 5% of the pop music you hear on the radio has instrumentation you wouldn't think is cool, like accordion. There's already accordion in the songs.
Well, I want it featured, like I want it in the video. I want the accordion player next to her on Saturday Night Live. I want it to be prominent.
I think that would be a waste of budget.
Okay. I say we start with the children. We just buy 100,000 accordions and just give one to the next 100,000 children born and see what happens.
It's sort of like a New Year's baby thing. It's like, were you born right when they were giving out accordions?
Oh, you're an accordion baby.
Right.
Oh, I like that. Like spread it out a little bit. The first baby born in every state every year gets a free accordion.
Ooh, I could actually fund that, I think.
50 accordions a year?
Yeah. I could probably handle that solo. Like, 100,000 accordions, I'm like,
One of those kids is going to grow up and learn that accordion and be like cool enough to make other people want one.
It really is the long game. Just slowly turning the tide toward Polka.
Yeah. The wheels of Polka turn slowly.
But you know who turns quickly? John Candy, who, from what I understand, was on set for what, a day?
A day, yeah. A long day.
What a turn.
I was watching and rewatching this minute over and over again, wondering like which pieces of John Candy and Catherine O'Hara's conversation we would kind of zoom in on, and maybe lamenting that all we would have to say about it is that it is so good.
So good.
It is so good. So here's what I propose, and you tell me if it's too off track. I propose we quickly summarize this minute. We quickly zoom in on the moments that we like a lot, and then we just talk about John Candy movies and projects that we appreciate.
Proposal accepted.
Okay. Jerod, in minute 60 of Home Alone, Kate has been pulled away from the Scranton ticket desk by Gus Polinski of the Kenosha Kickers. He introduces himself. Kate politely listens to him. And that's about it.
I mean, that's it.
It's a great minute, but that's it. But Gus Polinski is sort of like that classic character who he thinks people have heard of him.
And I hate to blow too much John Candy smoke here, but he also does it better. Like, it is a well-trodden archetype.
You got your Ron Burgundies and stuff like that. Phil Hartman on News Radio was sort of a version of that.
Yeah. Yeah. But John Candy just does it better.
It's a wholesome version of it. The way that he just sort of like says his name and sort of like stands back and waits for the praise to come in. And he continues to do that while he names all of his songs.
That's just reinforcement, right? It means that he's had a couple of interactions with people where he's introduced himself and they're like, okay. And then he's like, Twin Lakes Polka? And they're like, oh, you're that guy.
Well, I think he's a guy who lives on the polka scene.
Right.
He's a big fish in a small pond. But when you're at the Scranton airport, you're not going to find a lot of fans.
Where do you think he encounters the most fans outside of, let's say, the venues he plays?
The bar next door?
I'm going to count that as the venue.
Okay.
Let's say a mile radius out of a venue he's played.
Does the same VFW on a different night count as a different place?
I'm going to say no, but with the caveat that it's a yes if it's people that weren't at his show.
But they might recognize him.
But not recognize him from a poster that's at that VFW.
Funeral parlors, maybe?
Is that talking about a future minute?
I'm sorry, it's against the rules. And here's where I drop like the sound effect.
All day.
See, that's leaning into it a little too much. Okay. All right. So as brilliant as John Candy is in this minute, my favorite two pieces in the minute are things that Kate says.
I won't steal them from you. Yes.
I think they're the only thing she gets to say, but when he's pulling her away, she goes, "What?" It kind of barks it at him in the perfect way. That's so good. And he kind of like domineers her in a weird way, of the idea that someone can have the energy that can pull her away from this moment where she's so desperate and driven to achieve her goal that like John Candy can like, just take her by the arm and pull her away from it. It's an impressive spirit on his part. Because
it's so pure. It's so well-intentioned.
He's the spirit of Christmas. He's the embodiment of everything good about Christmas as it stands in the 90s. Like we're at the turn of a decade here, and there was a lot of talk about like what the 90s meant, right? Like, oh, it's the 90s, and like family dynamics are changing, and our idea of what it means to be together for Christmas, what it means to be there for each other in the season of perpetual hope. She says that line in a world where that's kind of deteriorating clearly. And then John Candy swoops in, and maybe it does still exist, just in a different way.
Which means he also has just a skosh of self-awareness about that. Like he's confident enough in his purity that he's not at all daunted by her being so snippy.
A worse movie, though, makes him like a magical force. And there's nothing magical about this, you know? Like there would be like the sort of like winky, like, hey, I've really saved the day. Like, you know, like God brought me to you kind of thing. It's a Wonderful Lifey kind of vibe to it. They could have gone that way and they don't. Like it's very grounded and very like, we rely on each other. Here's this very flawed, weird dude, but the purity of his compassion is what we can all appreciate.
And the other line that she says,
these are songs. It's
so
like,
good.
It's like she invented a new punctuation mark.
It's like a half question.
It's like a lowercase question mark or something.
Ooh, yes. That's good. It's not half, it's lowercase.
Yeah.
These are songs.
Oh, I love it. Which of his hits do you think slaps the hardest?
Polka, polka, polka.
Because he mentions it first.
I just think that's the one that every 65 to 75-year-old woman comes up to him and talks about. They're like, I just love polka, 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 polka.
It is the one that he sings. Polka, polka. As if that would help.
Like he just can't fathom that she hasn't heard it because it's such a bop.
Here's the frustrating idea about the ubiquitous nature of this movie is that Yamahuzi polka is an ungoogleable term now. I have no idea what Yamahuzi means or is. And when you give it a Goog, this is the only thing that comes up.
So if you know what that or the green and yellow caps are.
Green and yellow cap update.
I tell you what, let's put a pin in that one.
Okay.
Because
put a pin in the green and yellow cap update.
I assume you had no trouble Googling Kenosha.
Yeah, that's out there.
Shout out to the misspelled Kenosha, the band that was a Swayze staple for some time there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. I'm sure they're listening.
They have to be.
It's required.
Twin Lakes. A lot of regional references in these polka names, which explains why he's the polka king of the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think is the polka king of the South?
I don't mean to be reductive or stereotypical, but some other guy with a Polish last name.
Yeah, that tracks.
Does polka even get its accordion, clarinet, tuba talons into the South? Does it even take hold? Is it a crop that only grows in the Midwest?
It's like the avocado of Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Gibbon, Minnesota, for those. If you know, you know.
Can I share a frustration with that saying that I never know?
Why don't you ask?
Well, I guess that's why I'm frustrated by if you know, you know, because you're closing me off. You're saying I won't be educating anyone on this matter. If you know, you know. And if you don't, well, this is not an opportunity for you to learn.
See, I think of it as much more of an invitation.
There's nothing inviting about that phrase.
What I'm saying is, if you know, you know. And if you don't, you should absolutely ask, because
that's not the expression, though. The expression isn't, if you know, you know, and I welcome people who don't to ask me more questions. The expression is, if you know, you know.
It's implied.
I don't think it is at all. I think the opposite is implied.
I'm not saying with others. I can't speak for anyone else, but if I say it.
Yeah, if you know, you know. You're just saying you're not invited to my party, and it makes me sad. You're just reminding me what a loser I am, because I don't know.
So am I to understand you correctly that you take it to mean basically the same thing as you had to be there?
A little bit. Like if we're gonna do an Instagram post that says like, you know, my favorite polka song is Twin Lakes Polka. If you know, you know. We're going to get some people who recognize it as a Home Alone reference and go, yep, I do know. And you're going to get some people who go, all right, I guess that's his favorite polka song. But there's something that I don't know. And it doesn't seem like I'm allowed to ask.
All right. If you know, you know. If not, ask.
The longer hashtag. If you know, you know. And if you don't, feel free to ask me some questions. I'm here to educate.
Too long. This is why we shortened it.
Yamahuzi Polka, a.k.a. Kiss Me Polka.
Is it Kiss Me, polka? Is it Kiss Me / polka? Or is it a Kiss Me polka?
I think it's the last one. I think it's Kiss Me Polka.
I do too, but
no
I want to hold out hope.
We're not doing a direct address. We're not inviting Polka to kiss you. But this is the polka song asking you to kiss me. It's the Kiss Me Polka.
I would say the comma could be something in addition to a direct address. It could be 2 different directives.
Kiss Me Polka. Do you think it's like a Popeye thing?
Blow me down? I think it's, number 1, kiss me. Number 2, polka. Like I'm telling someone to polka. Like you're saying, stop, collaborate, forget about anything else, but just kiss me, polka. 2
commands in one.
Yes.
Do we think it's just a cover of the Sixpence None the Richer song?
I think it's an interpolation of U2's Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me polka.
From the Batman Polka Forever soundtrack. Starring Tommy Lee Jones as Tuba Face.
These are songs. How do you feel about the upright bass being out in the open? Were they playing, or does he not have a case?
I can see him not having a case.
The other guys have flight cases, though.
They do. He's got to check that bass. You can't carry that on.
And then he's got to watch himself. You check the bass. Watch yourself.
If they've been stuck at the airport long enough, there are all sorts of reasons he might need to get it out.
Maybe he's doing like the tech checklist on that clipboard.
Yeah. He might be restringing. He might be cleaning. He might be like running some scales, just staying in practice.
Like just admiring it.
Maybe some little boy asked what was in the case and he like showed it off.
And he's like, well, might as well leave it out now.
Yeah. The kickers are invested in the youth. Polka outreach. Reach me, polka.
Educate me, polka.
Teach me polka. It's not a song about teaching you polka. It's just the teaching you polka.
Yeah, it's the teach me polka.
It's the polka song you listen to when you want someone to teach you anything.
Yeah, which could include polka, but it's not required.
You and I have both played in and still are in. We do this podcast because we are a small band.
I knew I forgot something.
When you hear Gus say that they sold 623 copies of that, what goes through your head?
I start making justifications for it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, okay, that number is nothing for a band that's on any sort of circuit. So I'm thinking, okay, is he talking one specifically about like a single?
Yeah.
That's also like a release from a record and like just like a 45 or something. And he is kind of toward the overlap of this minute into the next one. We'll just go ahead and like sneak that in. That he is talking about in a specific market.
Mm-hmm.
But even then,
yeah,
it's like, I guess the long and the short of it is that even as a joke, it's still too small.
So if he said like 1,200 copies, if we double that, it's still funny, but more realistic in terms of like how big of a deal this guy thinks he is.
Yeah, something like
623 for a very niche genre, though, sounds pretty good to me.
Devil's advocate would say that niche genres have more fervent fans. So if we talk about like a pop artist and they have 10,000 people at a show, maybe 10% of them will buy their record.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
everybody at a Kenosha Kickers show is buying the record.
Everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. What strikes me, and I buy it, but the specificity of the number, we sold about 623 copies of that. About. I would, if it were me, I would not know exactly how. I don't know how many Home Alone records we sold.
622.
Not even close. But we live in a streaming era, so it's different. But for him to have such a specific number means that he's running this whole band.
Is that surprising to you for the Polka King of the Midwest?
I mean, it's just like it's a specific number, so specific numbers are funnier than, if we said like 1,000 or 1,200 or something like that.
Right.
And the about, to qualify it with about 623 means it's exactly 623. And he's probably counting like the one that he gave away to his mom as a sale.
She paid for it.
You think so?
Yeah.
You think the ones that they delivered to the radio station, they count as a sale?
If they're a label, they would. That's a bit of music business snark that was unnecessary.
You're going to get some emails. You can always write us at polkarage@verygmail.com. Let us know. Jerod, when you think about John Candy, I think we've talked about Uncle Buck being like, a highlight of his filmography. What other roles? Let's just appreciate him for a moment here. He shows up. He's in the next minute too, but let's live in John Candy world for a moment. What do you like?
I have a really strong emotional attachment to him in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yeah, good one.
I think that Dell character is like very complex and actually not as sympathetic as what you would think that character would be built to be, but he just knocks it out of the park.
That role solidified that like a character type too. Like that became a trope after that movie of like that annoying but soulful, gentle, harmless doofus kind of guy. That's what's the movie where Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis take a road trip?
Ooh,
Due Date, is that what it's called?
I don't know.
Same kind of deal though. Like, Zach Galifianakis plays this very John Candy kind of annoying guy, and then the whole journey of the movie is, but we like him.
Right.
I'm not saying that John Candy was the first, but I think his performance codified that character type.
That's a great way of saying it. Like that archetype wasn't solidified.
Yeah, he set the rules for what that kind of character is.
Absolutely.
I can't remember if we've talked about Camp Candy before.
Probably not on the show, but we have.
I really liked Camp Candy. I don't even know if it like ran for very long. If you don't know, Camp Candy was a animated, like a Saturday morning cartoon where John Candy ran a summer camp for kids. And every episode he would go on these adventures and they'd learn a lesson about sharing or whatever. But I really liked it.
It was good.
Good theme song too.
If only we had another band
that did TV theme songs.
I think if you're talking about classic Candy, which is maybe a great name for a book, I think you have to talk about The Great Outdoors.
Yeah, I have strong memories of that movie too. A lot of those scenes were kind of like seared into my brain because whenever I saw that movie, like it just made an impression.
There's one where I like the movie and I like his performance in it, but I don't think he makes the movie, which is, I think, a rarity. But Spaceballs?
He's great in Spaceballs. The movie's great. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Because there are a couple of classics of like, she doesn't look Jewish.
I'm my own best friend.
Like, he's great in it, but that movie would be about as good.
It's great beyond him too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm a big fan of the Sesame Street film, Follow That Bird.
Oh, yeah.
And he has a cameo in it where the bad guys have been like kidnapping Big Bird and keeping him hostage. And towards the end, they've finally saved Big Bird, and the bad guys get pulled over by a police officer, and it's John Candy. And in his motorcycle sidecar is the little boy that the bad guy stole an apple from earlier in the movie. And there's this shot from like inside the truck, like shooting outside, where like John Candy's staring them down, questioning them. And he lifts up the little boy like by the collar. He goes, "These are the guys." And the boy just nods his head with like his big motorcycle helmet on. And it's so good. I love that movie so much. And he's in it for, 15 seconds maybe, but it's a good 15 seconds.
John Candy being a little not John Candy, Rookie of the Year.
Oh, is he in that?
Yeah, he's one of the announcers.
Oh, I remember really liking that movie. What I remember about that movie is that I saw it in the theaters, and at the end, everybody clapped.
Really? Like they landed a plane?
Yeah. And even at that age, I was like, no one...
You're like, guys.
No one is in the theater who made the movie. I just couldn't get behind clapping for it.
Oh, that also has Daniel Stern in it.
There you go.
There we go.
Nice.
Who plays a very different, but also the same guy.
Daniel Stern always looks like Daniel Stern.
Right. He can't undo that.
Yeah. He's not like Tom Hardy. You're like, oh, that was him? Oh, weird.
Although he can shed that when it's just the voice because the Wonder Years.
Yeah. The whole time you watch the Wonder Years, it just does sound like that. I guess
Daniel,
that's Fred Savage as an adult, but...
But Daniel, this is not your minute.
No.
This is clearly John Candy's minute.
Yeah, absolutely. The next minute probably is too. So I don't know what the hell we're going to talk about then, but...
Have you looked to see how many of these lines were written?
Oh, yeah. Do you want me to read the original scene for you?
It just says John Candy in brackets.
John Candy does funny things. Here's what the scene reads like in the script that's available online. Kate snaps, "I'm going to get home to my son." The ticket agent just stares at Kate, as does everyone in the terminal. Suddenly, a hand appears on Kate's shoulder. "Maybe I can help," Gus says. Kate turns. A curly-haired man in his late 30s, Gus Polinski, stands behind her. Gus is dressed in his traveling clothes, a sky blue shirt, Sansa belt slacks, plastic loafers, and a red satin jacket with the words Gus Polinski and the Kenosha Kickers emblazoned across the back. He is holding an accordion case. Gus extends his hand. "Gus Polinski, Polka King of the Midwest. That's my band over there, the Kenosha Kickers." Gus points to a row of men seated a few feet away, dressed in pastel shirts, polyester slacks, wearing red satin jackets, and holding their packed musical instruments. Gus continues to speak with Kate. "You a polka fan?" Kate says, "A little, ... And Gus says, "Ever heard of the I don't want her, you can take her, she can't stuff the kielbasa polka?" And Kate says, "Sounds familiar." Gus, "That's us. Sold 658 copies." And then the rest of the minute is, the rest of the scene is in the next minute, so I won't go on. But it's fascinating, right? Some of that stayed in, but clearly, like, just the idea of it is what stayed.
He brought it to life.
He's not holding an accordion either.
No, he didn't need an accordion. He didn't need a jacket. He didn't need anything.
Yeah, and we don't need that like sort of dirty polka title either. I think we landed on a better choice here to have all these. Twin Lakes polka is funnier than that kielbasa joke.
Well, he also does it again better, as opposed to like, here's the thing you would know us by. Do you know that? No? As opposed to like him just kind of running through this laundry list and just being like, are you sure? Okay, well, what about this though? Like he just keeps coming back to it. It's just way more developed.
I imagine they had to do a few takes, go through these lines quite a few times, and he's just so effortlessly cool about it all. We have some very cool runnings here.
Oh, okay. I missed that one.
That's a good one.
How many times do you think they ran the lines for this scene? 100? 1,000? Brewster's millions?
At least 1,941 times.